All of our islands tell a story of creation and adventure and of growth. Sure, we all embark on our own distinct journeys throughout the game that are shaped by the different choices we make, but I think that many of us learn similar lessons along the way. Today, I want to share with you just a few small snippets of what my Animal Crossing journey has been like and some of the lessons that I've learned. Maybe you'll be able to relate to some of my experiences, or perhaps some of these lessons will be completely new to you and possibly helpful. Here's what happened while I spent over 2,000 hours making 4 islands in 1 year. Let's go. Funny story, I actually forgot about this one, so I guess we'll be discussing 5 islands instead of 4. Yay! So, Serenume was actually the second or third island that I played around on, but it was the first time that I really looked at and evaluated what I was doing. Mostly it was just making mistakes because there was no plan, it was just absolute chaos. But from that chaos, I learned that having a plan was important. That includes color scheme, villager choices, and at least a few of the major design elements like lakes or volcanoes that I wanted to have present on the island. The other major lesson that I took away from Serenume was that I still needed a lot more practice before I could truly understand what any of that actually meant. Elowyn was a lot of fun because in my planning, I decided to build this island around a story and to see where that would take me. I dabbled in a few different themes, primarily Fairycore and Junglecore, and it was actually really cool to try and figure out how to blend those themes in a way that let them both shine individually, but also not have an extreme starkness between them. What solidified in my mind was this understanding that every theme has something unique to it at its roots. And when you understand how its theme generally looks and feels, it opens the door to a lot more ideas than you might have had before. This is when I got super passionate about island themes because having a clear guideline to work with still promotes and creates space for innovation and creativity, but it also literally offers guidance for those moments when you don't know what to do. By exploring ideas through the lenses of different themes, I was able to mix and match and merge things together in a way that I felt really elevated my personal artistic perspective. I knew that I still needed more practice, but Elowyn is when I noticed myself becoming a lot more confident in what I was doing on my island. And it was with that confidence I began to explore different styles of terraforming where I found things that just really felt right to me. I encourage anyone who is afraid of terraforming or who thinks that they just aren't any good at it to take a few days, set aside a good chunk of your island, and really lean into it. It's one of those things where the more you play around with it and see for yourself how different shapes look and feel, you'll develop a much better understanding of what your specific terraforming style is like. On Khamillo, I felt like I had finally come into my own. I had a good idea of what I wanted to do, and I approached the island with a plan to break it into smaller pieces. By breaking the island down, I was able to divide my time between different sections, which actually helped to curb my burnout, because if I got tired of one area, I'd just move on to a different spot for a while. This technique also helped me to get a better understanding of the island as a whole. I noticed where I would typically run to get from one place to another, and I made those areas into the paths around the island because it just made sense to do that. The other major revelation I had while working on Khamillo was this idea of designing and decorating along invisible lines. This is actually an idea that I got from @Minsuya on Instagram because she does this so well. Essentially, it's just terraforming and decorating in lines that guide you along the path or that direct your eye when you're looking at a space. I hadn't perfected this skill on Khamillo, or even now to be perfectly honest, but it's the kind of technique where if it's done well, you don't even really notice it because the lines all blend into each other in a very aesthetically pleasing way. And the last major lesson from my time on Khamillo was creating areas on my island inspired by my real-life experiences. Take this mountain range-like area. I would have never thought to combine these colors together, but while driving through the Romanian countryside, I saw flower fields with this color palette and they were so beautiful. I took those colors and combined them throughout this area, and it ended up being one of my favorite spots that I've ever made. Never underestimate the beauty and the power of art that imitates life. It's a thing for a reason. Acorn Ridge was my attempt at a spooky, autumn suburbs-themed island, and while it didn't work out as well as Khamillo did, there were still some good lessons that it taught me. First, it reaffirmed how satisfying it can be to design and decorate areas along those invisible lines that we just talked about. But another major takeaway was that sometimes you have to be flexible and offer yourself the grace to let something go if it just isn't working. When I started on this island, I had an entirely different plan, an idea of what the final result would be, and I spent hours and hours and hours trying to force this idea onto the island, but in the end I realized two things. One, I didn't know what I was doing, and two, I still needed more practice. I decided to take a step back and ask myself instead, what other skill or idea did I want to learn more about? I settled on practicing my water terraforming, which resulted in this lake view. It's not the best lake that I've ever seen, but I accepted that it didn't have to be. It just needed to get the job done for how I wanted the area to look and feel. And in the end, I think it worked out just fine. My focus shifted from trying to achieve a perfect creation to instead focusing on learning new tricks and practicing new skills. And sometimes that's really all we can ask for. Not everything you do has to be a solid work of art or look exactly right. Most of the lessons that I've learned came not from the perfect areas done well, but from the questionable and deplorable areas that I just kinda had to accept. My most recent island, Camden, is almost finished, and it was an experience. To be perfectly frank, I didn't want to make a Christmas-themed island. I pressured myself into doing it because I saw so many other people doing it, and in the end, Camden just pretty much became a mashup of different practice areas for what I actually want to do on my next island. That being said, I'm still really glad that I took the time to try Christmascore out. Every theme has something to teach us if we're willing to pay attention. This is why it's so important to branch out and try new things once in a while. Christmascore gave me an opportunity to better explore lights and how to use them to set the mood for an area. And it forced me to think outside the realm of warmth and green colors, which ended up leading to some really fun areas that I don't think I would have thought of otherwise. These are ideas that I now get to take with me into my future islands. There can be a lot of benefits to building an island around a theme that you wouldn't normally think to try. Camden was my soft reminder that you don't have to follow the trends or stick to the real-world seasons if that's not what inspires you. You're not playing for reality, you're playing for the story and for the experience that you want to create. Let me know in the comments what your Animal Crossing New Horizons journey has been so far. Did anything from my journey resonate with you? Thanks so much for watching and for your support, it means the world to me. And until next time, bye!